Hi everyone. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that today is Melbourne's March for Science. It is being held on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay special respect to the Wurundjeri people of the area in which Burrung Ma is held, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I might just take, I don't know. I feel a bit sorry. Alright, I'd like to commend you all for braving the weather conditions to gather here with us. We're here to communicate an important message about progression in Australia's approach to STEM, and everyone's resilience here indicates that determination pretty perfectly. To introduce myself, my name is Krystal De Napoli. I am a proud Kamilaroi woman raised in rural northeast Victoria under the most beautifully clear night skies that you can see, which ignited my passion for astronomy. I'm completing my undergraduate degree in astrophysics at Monash University, and I'm researching the astronomical traditions of my mob and other Indigenous communities across Australia with Dr. Duane Hamacher. I'm relatively new to being a science communicator, but it is a journey I'm loving every minute of and taking in full stride. It is this topic, the necessity of science communication, that I wanted to impress the importance of today. I perhaps, like many of you here, did not come from a family of scientists or engineers. My passions for mathematics and physics did not come from my home environment specifically, but was instead nurtured by my community as a whole. This happens for all of us in many ways, not only in the school classrooms, but with the information promoted to us in public spaces. I was very fortunate in my time at high school to have incredibly passionate teachers, and this experience has only strengthened since commencing my studies at university. I truly believe that science is for everyone. Every single person uses it in their life every day, whether they realise it or not. Unfortunately, it seems that a number of people are intimidated when it comes to STEM, thinking that they're incapable of understanding. Getting the country as a whole invested and passionate about scientific advancement is a crucial step in achieving evidence-based policies and developing a country that strives towards a strategic, long-term approach to scientific innovation. The most effective way of garnering someone's interest is actually very simple, and it's just by engaging them in discussion. If you talk to people, pass your knowledge on, and instill excitement in them for finding out more, you're going to set off a chain reaction. They will talk to people in their lives, those people will talk to people in their lives, and so on. This information exchange is crucial for getting everyone involved, especially those not directly involved in a STEM field. We need to continue targeting education as the pillar for which all these changes we're demanding stand. It is the long-term approach to seeing progress. I will continue to advocate for outreach programs for the underrepresented groups in STEM. There is a lot we can do small scale every day in our lives. You can do this, you can speak to the youth, you know, speak to the people that you know. Fostering that love for science is now ensures that in the future, our society will be one full of those passionate and aware. The students of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and the students of today are the voters of tomorrow. Sorry, my hands are very cold. My parting words are to encourage you, encouraging others to be passionate in science. Attending today was a great step in that direction. Make sure you continue to do it in all aspects of your lives. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Krystal. Thank you.
Thank you, Krystal. Krystal is, of course, an up-and-coming scientist. She's going to go quite far, I'm sure, and I wish you all the best for your cadetship at CSIRO. And next up we have Dr. Duane Hamacher, who is your supervisor at Krystals.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of, yes. Duane is a kind of supervisor of Krystals and an astronomer and a senior ARC Discovery Early Career Research Fellow at the Monash Indigenous Studies Centre. He publishes extensively on Indigenous astronomical and geological knowledge and traditions, working closely with Aboriginal and Islander elders, students and knowledge custodians across Australia. Please welcome Dr. Duane Hamacher.
It's going to be really hard to follow that. I didn't write anything. I was just going to ad-lib it. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. I'm an astronomer at Monash Indigenous Centre. I'm also a member of the NTEU, and I really support anybody who is an academic or working in higher tertiary education to be involved in the union. I've actually had to use them before on issues, so it becomes something we can all benefit from. It might seem kind of odd talking about this guy standing up here with a funny accent about learning Aboriginal astronomy. It's something that I started doing about 10 years ago, but I became fascinated with science as a kid. How many people here became fascinated with science as a kid? By definition, right? Yeah. Awesome. I grew up out in the country in middle part of Missouri in the Midwest of the U.S. and became fascinated with Australia. I was one of those kids who grew up watching Crocodile Dundee, and that's what I thought of when I came down here. And I moved down to Australia to study astrophysics, and I absolutely love this country. It's such an amazing place. But I started learning more about the cultural and social aspects of astronomy and how that related, and decided that, you know, I love doing astrophysics, but I was really fascinated by this area of astronomy, culture, and history. And I got involved in working with some Aboriginal communities around the Sydney region on learning about their astronomical traditions, and that's something that oftentimes doesn't get very much attention. We don't think of astronomy in a cultural context. I mean, you talk to people about Aboriginal astronomy, I usually get a bit of like the dog cocks its head sideways, like, what are you talking about? Or even by some people, a bit of a side eye. But it's something that more and more people are hearing about now. How many people here have heard about Aboriginal astronomy before? A few of you. Excellent, good. We're doing our job then. One of the issues, of course, there are no professional astronomers in Australia that are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. And up until a couple of years ago, didn't know of anybody. Now, fortunately, people like Krystal, people like Kirsten Banks in Sydney, who's speaking right now with the Sydney March for Science, Carly Noon at ANU. These are going to be the up-and-coming faces in science communication. You're going to be seeing a lot more of these individuals coming up, promoting not just Aboriginal astronomy, but doing amazing work in astrophysics as well. The other thing I wanted to mention before we go is my interest in cultural heritage. And one thing that is mutual heritage between everybody here is the most famous constellation down here. What do you think I'm talking about? What's the most famous constellation in Australia? Everybody knows the Southern Cross, right? It's very prominent in Aboriginal traditions. It's on the Australian flag. Everybody knows it. But one of the problems we're having in Australia is that you cannot see some of the stars of the Southern Cross anymore because of light pollution. Light pollution is really, really getting bad. And one of the main things that's driving light pollution, but it's a very hot topic right now, especially in more rural areas, is LED lighting. LED lighting is an absolute disaster nightmare when it comes to having dark skies in astronomy. LED lights release a lot of energy at the blue end of the spectrum. Mel was telling me earlier, we've all got our phones. We've got a special app on there where we can reduce the amount of blue light because it damages our eyes. But blue light reflects off the ground. It goes into the sky. It blinds the stars out. We have major issues with lighting in Australia that are causing us to lose our cultural heritage. How can we maintain heritage for something we can't even see anymore? So I'm hoping that everybody thinks about this when you consider if anybody's working in council or with community projects. When LED lighting comes up, yes, it does save money, but you need to consider how damaging it can be for our night skies and start looking at alternatives to that. Thank you.
Now, on our program today, we also have a competition for the best banner. Now, I've seen at least one good banner. Would you like to bring it forward and show everybody? Come forward, please. Do we have any other banners? Have you got a homemade banner?
I do.
Okay. We also have the beautiful March for Science banner, by the way, which you haven't looked at yet. Please take a quick look. The glue is dissolving in the rain. There won't be any prize for them, I'm sure. So, you're on here as well. Would you like to come forward?
Go for it, yeah.
So, it hasn't escaped my notice, but I actually forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. My name's Duane Hamacher.
It was for Pauline farts on disguise.
My name is Duane Hamacher, and I am Master of Ceremonies today, and I am as a science communicator by profession, and I am the president of the Australian branch of Australian Science Communicators. And for me, science is everything, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you guys as well. But the communication of science is absolutely vital, which is why we're here today and why we've got such beautiful banners. Can I have a look at your banner as well? Would you like to show the audience your banner, show the crowd? Those are great. Did you make those yourselves? Oh, okay.
Okay, and can we would you like to hold yours up as well? Wonderful, thank you. All right, so what I'd like to do is obviously this is quite a difficult competition and quite a hard thing to judge. So I'm going to ask you if you could help me, please, by show of a round of applause. When I point at the banner or poster in question, I'd like you to applaud, cheer, stamp your feet, whatever it takes to show me how much you like it. And the one with the loudest applause, of course, will be the winner. So, would you like to hold your banner up, please, and applaud accordingly? Beautiful work, thank you. Okay, silence. Hold your banner up, please. Next one, would you please applaud accordingly? Thank you very much. Pop it back down for me for the moment. And last but not least, would you like to hold your banner in the air so that everybody can see it and applaud accordingly? Well, I think we have a clear winner. Madam, would you like to come forward and tell me your name? What's your name? Josie. Congratulations, Josie. Thank you very much. You have won a prize of a beautiful book called Sunburned Country by Joel Gurgis, which I think you might... It's nice bedtime reading for you. I'm sure you're going to enjoy that. There you go. You take that home and let me know how you get on with it. Okay, round of applause for all our competitors. Thank you. All right, you can pop back if you like. Well done. All right, next up we have Miss Jeannie Ray, who is National President of the National Tertiary Education Union and former Deputy Dean of Arts, Education and Human Development at Victoria University. All right, there you are. Hello, welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us to speak here today. I have some science bona fides. I do have a Masters in Environmental Science, but much of my research is actually in the social sciences, where we face the same issues, often of opinion, uninformed opinion, and prejudice takes the place of actually listening to the evidence. So I want to begin, of course, by acknowledging that we are on Aboriginal land and pay my respects to the elders of the Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nations, and also pay my respects to other Aboriginal people that are here with us today. I'm from the NTU. The NTU is a union that covers people who work in universities and research institutes and other higher education and research settings. I also want to acknowledge our colleagues from the CSIRO Staff Association here today as well. But for us, that means if we cover the people who work in universities, that's not just academics, that's also all those technicians and laboratory staff and administrative people. So amongst our members, we have thousands of scientists. We also have 500 members who are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, because our union is very deeply committed to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander rights and self-determination, and we are to treaty. But of course we're a trade union, so how we show that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander rights and welfare matter to us is that we have in our enterprise agreements that we must have targets for jobs for Aboriginal people. Because enterprise agreements or collective agreements are legally enforceable. They're much better than policy. That's the point. Things that are legally enforceable that we can say to the management of our universities, you've agreed to appoint Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, so get on to it or else you're actually breaking the agreement. So that's what you do as a trade union. You're actually after trying to get decent jobs. And our scientists in our universities, along with everybody else of course, but our scientists are working very hard and doing very important work in teaching and research, but in a relentlessly difficult environment. And one of the reasons that's so difficult is because of the inadequacy of funding. Now, I'm not going to, even though the rain has stopped, I'm not going to call out a whole set of figures but, and so on, and numbers and all the rest of it to explain the problem. I'm actually going to tell you about what that actually means. The problem is the real cost of research is not funded. Every grant from every source is always trimmed. You never get what you actually apply for. A few nods are happening now. Then it comes into the university or the research institute, and then it's trimmed off again. So some stuff goes to admin, some goes, I don't know where. And even when we've padded out our grant applications, and don't we all do it? Well, everyone knows we all do it, and when we're on the panels deciding on it, we know everyone's done it. So that doesn't sort of work either. So the funds that And also the funds that come in with each government-supported place for students, likewise, have bits taken out of it as soon as it hits the university. Some of that goes to add a little bit to the inadequate funding for research. So there's a recognition that research isn't funded properly. Other bits, again, wander off in all sorts of directions, including in marketing and branding, so universities are competing with one another, which also doesn't help the proliferation of good research and good science. So what are we left with? A scenario where governments are pulling a sleight of hand on us. And I mean every government of all persuasions here. This is not giving any preference to any government of any political party here at all. They all pull this sleight of hand and they'll claim, we've increased funding. They'll say it about all sorts of things. But then they say they've increased university funding. They'll say, what they don't say is there's heaps and heaps more students there, and each of those students that's funded by government and pay help themselves, pay fees and go into debt themselves. But each one of those, we're not at, enrolls means a little bit more money in the university. Same with the research projects. Yeah, more research projects, bit more money with them all. But it still remains they're not putting enough in. And so every time you hear funding's increased, and I'm sure it's the case across every other field, in the hospitals, in public services, in any sorts of areas, adding a bit more money when it just means you need to do more with it means doing more with less. So it's easy to say that government funding's increased, but it hasn't when more is expected with it. So how do they save the money? How do the universities manage this? And of course, as other institutions do too, they employ the staff precariously. So we're now in a scenario where 4 out of 5 teaching staff, teaching only staff in our universities are on casual contracts. That means now more than half of the teaching is being done by people employed for a few hours over a teaching session, and it's even the few hours they're employed, they're expected to do a whole heap more work in marking, in administration, in talking to the students. And the university management cynically knows they're getting that for free. Some of these people have been doing this for years. They're often, of course, very highly qualified, very experienced. Now in research, 4 out of 5 of research-only staff are on fixed-term contracts, and those contracts are increasingly shorter and shorter contracts. So whereas you used to get the length of a project, or at least you get a year or a year into it, now people keep coming back saying, it's down to 9 months. It's down to 3 months. And they're going to have to employ me again because I'm the only one that knows this bit of what to do next. So we've got union members who've worked on contract year in and year out. Even as chief investigators, they've been on decades on contracts. The universities have no shame. They will even promote these scientists. They will take credit for their publications. They will use these scientists' names in branding the university and for the reputation of the university to attract other staff and students. Yet they are very reluctant to revert people to ongoing positions. That's all they're asking for, to know that they're still going to have a job with next year, or the next half of the year, or even a third of the year these days. We're fighting this. We've had some success, but to be truthful, it gallops away from us. The contracting, the casualisation, it keeps increasing as fast as we can try and get more people converted and get more decent jobs created. It's not about soft money. It's not about soft money. Look, yeah, that's always the argument. Everyone here is familiar with that. It's not about that. When you think you've got a lab, the lab's going to keep going. There's a whole lot, for example, the tech office in the lab. They're the experts in that field. You have to have them, whatever the actual new projects coming in are. Why aren't they employed in an ongoing capacity? And that's less and less likely these days. Jobs that used to be a decent ongoing job are increasingly not so anymore. These staff aren't valued by their universities. They have to anxiously wait to see if their contract's renewed, and they're often unemployed over summer when other people are taking paid leave. It's unfair, it's unnecessary, and it usually doesn't even save much money. It just leaves scientists unable to do the usual things you expect as you move through life. Insecure workers I've often said things like, their lives are on hold. They can't actually make those decisions about forming families, buying anything, just doing normal stuff that you expect to be able to do. It's all just extremely unfair and it's quite punitive. And this is where I'll finish, it is bad for science. If you're focused on where your next job's coming from, you just don't have the time or even intellectual or physical energy to put as much as you put into your work, your current work. Precariously employed scientists have also told me they're intimidated. They feel intimidated. They feel that they're unable to speak with their colleagues on the direction of a research project. They feel silenced. They feel like they can't contribute as much as they would like to. But they quietly just have to get on with following what their supervisor wants them to do, feeling they're not doing enough, it's not actually working properly. Yeah, I'm not surprised when people abandon it and abandon this, which is also what happens. Sometimes I've had particularly young scientists say to me, what if something went seriously amiss in what I was working on and I wanted to call that out? Yeah, that's part of one's responsibility to do that. That'd be the end of my career before I even started. That's a very, very bad environment. Precarious employment encourages deep conservatism. It's really hard to be out there pursuing the difficult questions, the hard problems, trying to answer, those wicked problems that face us. If in each grant application you'd be really careful and say, well, only go for this, that we're going to look at this because we've got a good chance that we might be able to get the results out on that one. You don't want to try for something that is going a bit further out there because if you both fail to get the grant or if you fail to have achieved it in the small time period, again, you're out of a job and you're out of just out of your reputation doesn't get gained for the consistent work you need. We have the problem for women. And what we've found is for all the effort, so many more women are in science these days, but they can't pursue and continue a career. So the worst combinations are all the things that we've had to put up with for years as women, all the sexism that's still hanging around too. But what we've also found is precarious jobs are particularly bad for women, particularly women who have children. If you don't have an ongoing job, first of all, you can't get parental leave. In most cases, you have to have a fair bit of consistent work to do that. But then you lose out. You're not part of the system. Then suddenly, look, what's happened to your research? What's happened to your publications? You're not serious. All that still prevails. So we need our scientists to be able to get on with science, get on with the research, get on with the teaching, to be creative, to be courageous, to investigate the hard stuff and tell us what's really going on, what really might work, and without any fears of repercussions. Precarious work makes it very hard to do that. So that's why the NTU is calling for secure work for scientists, and I hope you all join us in that. Thank you very much.
God as much. I'm very impressed you're all here anyway. You are forgiven for not performing any chants. I'm very impressed that you managed to turn up, and don't we need the rain? And aren't we glad that it stopped anyway? My next speaker is Dr. Linda McIver, founder and executive director of the Australia Data Science Education Institute. She's working to ensure that every Australian student has the opportunity to be computationally and data literate. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Linda McIver.
Does anyone need to jump up and down? I can't feel my feet.
Yeah.
I started my career as an academic and then I became a high school teacher, which I've been for the last 7 years, teaching computer science in high schools. And I loved that. I could have stayed in the classroom forever. But I left at the end of last year because it became clear to me that while it was great making kids data literate in my classes, it was a much, much bigger problem than that, which is why I founded the Australian Data Science Education Institute to support STEM and data science in schools, because it's a crucial problem. And I want to tell you a story to illustrate why I think it's so important. And it's a story about my friend Riley. At the end of last year, he'd just finished year 12, which everyone had told him was the hardest year of his life. We all know that's garbage, but he doesn't need to know that yet. And he had kicked year 12's butt. He had worked so hard and he'd finished it, got a fabulous result, and was about to go to New Zealand on the trip of a lifetime, a road trip with his mates. Well, he was diagnosed with stage 2 lymphoma. So this is a story about science saving lives, but it's also a story about ignorance putting them at risk. Because Riley obviously then did not go to New Zealand. He stayed home and had chemotherapy. He was in hospital for an extraordinarily long time, suffered horrendous and bizarre side effects. He was an outlier like me, and it's not fun being an outlier. You get to experience all the things that they say won't happen. But the biggest problem, of course, was that he was trapped. He was stuck in hospital or he was at home. The chemotherapy trashed his immune system, so he couldn't get out and see people. The thing about this particular form of chemotherapy that he has, my tongue's frozen, is that it goes for a couple of weeks and then he gets a couple of weeks break. Now, by the end of the cycle of chemotherapy, his immune system is trashed and he can't go out, he can't see anyone because he can't risk getting even the slightest cold. It could literally kill him. But by the end of the 2 weeks break in between cycles, his immune system has recovered enough that he can get out, he can see people, and this was what really kept him going. And when he goes into hospital for the first of his cycle of chemo, which is a day-long thing, we can go visit him, we can hang out, we can chat. By the end of the cycle, can't do that anymore because he can't risk the contact. So this was his life. A lot of time in hospital, a lot of time trapped at home, and a few little windows where he could get out. Until the measles outbreak came to town. Now, we know measles as a seemingly trivial childhood disease, but it can kill. It can kill babies, it can even sometimes kill healthy adults, although that's rare. But in the case of someone like Riley, it can literally kill him at the slightest contact. And the measles outbreak was in his area. So suddenly he went from being able to get out occasionally and clinging to these periods of light in what is an exceptionally dark time. Suddenly Riley couldn't get out. He's now trapped at home, hiding from measles, because if he so much as goes to the shops and walks past someone with measles, it could literally kill him. So this is why I say it's a story of ignorance, because this is why I started the Australian Data Science Education Institute, because if we had a society which was data literate and science literate, anti-vax would not be a thing. Climate change denial would not be a thing. We would not have politicians standing up in Parliament, holding up lumps of coal and saying coal is good for humanity, because we would be science and data literate and it would not be a thing. Science can save our lives, it can immensely improve our lives, but we have to support it. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Linda. I've nothing else to say. That's it, isn't it? Our last speaker is Dr. Andrew Siebel, Research Manager of the Centre for Systems Genomics at the University of Melbourne. He's also academic convener, is that how I say that? That's embarrassing, for the Computational Biology Research Initiative. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Andrew Siebel.
Okay, thanks so much. I firstly want to acknowledge the lands we stand on, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. All I ever wanted to be, from the time that I can remember, was a vet. I've always loved animals, been fascinated by them and wanted to work with them. I did a Bachelor of Science degree at Melbourne Uni with the intention of transferring to vet science after the first year. Unfortunately, I missed out on the marks to get into the course by 2% after the first year and then by 1% after the second year. I then had to consider a plan B, which I had not planned on at all. It wasn't until the final year of my science degree that I became passionate about research, or even knew you could do research as a job. I then went on to complete my honours and PhD in zoology, working with Tamil wallabies. My first real research job was in the Department of Physiology at Melbourne Uni, where I became more interested in how the human body works and sometimes doesn't work. Biomedical research was the focus of my work for a further 8 years at the Baker Heart and Diabetes Research Institute on rolling 12-month contracts, before I took on a research management role back at Melbourne Uni about 2 years ago. I love helping others with their research in the relatively new and rapidly growing fields of computational biology and genomics. Every day I get to work with and help undergraduate students through to professors who are at the cutting edge of technology, research methods and science. So why is science so important, not only to me but society? Well, science is all around us. Everything we do stems from STEM. Having said that, it's important that scientists engage with politicians, policymakers and general public, particularly the next generation, as we've seen so beautifully today, to help translate our outcomes into societal benefits. Effective science communication and improving scientific literacy is key. Encouraging our children and the next generation of scientists to pursue careers in science is the only way we can secure our future and the future knowledge and innovation economy. We as scientists need to consider public opinion, the ethical implications and the broader application of our work. Because of that, good science takes time. Experiments don't always work, otherwise it wouldn't be called experiments. In this day and age of fake news, it is so important that scientists maintain the highest of standards so as we have a lasting impact on society. Science is responsible for providing the solid evidence to inform policy, #evidence-based policy, rather than the policy makers driving scientific priorities. Some of the most important discoveries have come from fundamental or basic science in its purest form. Did you know that Australian scientists have changed history and dramatically improved, if not saved, the lives of millions worldwide with their discoveries? These include penicillin-based antibiotics. Penicillin's ability to fight bacterial infections has saved over 200 million lives worldwide. The bionic ear, which is a cochlear implant into the head which captures sounds, converts it to a digital code and then electronically stimulates the auditory nerve to send the message to the brain where it can be interpreted. Ultrasound technology, used to diagnose problems of the breast, abdomen and reproductive organs, as well as monitor the health and development of babies in the uterus. There's also Wi-Fi technology, cervical cancer vaccine, the electric drill, the winged keel, spray-on skin, the black box recorder. The list goes on and on. Scientists are curious by nature, and ideally it should be curiosity that drives our scientific agenda. However, this sort of research cannot continue if we do not have your support. All of these great discoveries need dollars. Investing in science is a no-brainer. The long-term return on investment can be as high as 20% dollar for dollar. Australia should be increasing, not decreasing, government support of science and technology, research and development. Unfortunately, in comparison with many first world countries, Australia is not known for its support of research and development. On a per capita basis, the country falls well below a number of our neighbouring Asian countries. Emma Johnston, President of Science and Technology Australia, addressed the National Press Club in February this year saying that although Australians love science, Australia has no clear whole-of-government plan for future solution making. We have a big picture science statement which is admirable, and roadmaps and reviews that have provided insights and ways forward, but we don't have a coordinated cross-portfolio investment plan, a plan to invest in the ultimate renewable resource. That renewable resource is scientific discovery, which is built on the back of a knowledge and innovation economy. This is why the March for Science is so important. We, as a scientific community, and our supporters must have a united voice. Science, not silence. Science is all around us. Science is everywhere. Science needs your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely. So I have a couple of bonuses. One bonus for Sunshine. Can't really claim credit for it, but that doesn't mean I'm any less grateful. Sorry. Thank you. Actually, I'm only going to be a moment because I'm going to welcome to the stage Professor Roger Jones, who is Professorial Research Fellow at the Victoria Institute for Strategic Economic Studies at Victoria University. You're amazing. He leads a small team who work on climate-related risk, ecological and institutional economics, and building research into practice. Please welcome to the stage, just briefly, Professor Roger Jones.
Can I make it up?
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. I wasn't going to speak today, but the sun's come out, so I think, and I didn't have time to print my notes because I had a colleague come around
one of these CIs on a 12-month contract, she'd been monstered at an industry workshop and she wanted to know, did she stuff up? I said, no, you've done nothing wrong. So it's a hard job sometimes. So growing up, I was a complete science nerd. And in 1970, about 10, we were being driven home with a mate, my mate Alan, home from school, and we were thinking all of the things we could science. Although back then, science was just a noun, not a verb. And one of the things we were going to do was to invent a car that ran on water. You know, the first law of thermodynamics, no problem. We were going to sort it out and crack it. But we were devastated to learn that someone already had that idea and had sold it to Joe Bjelke-Peterson in Queensland, the car that ran on water. Of course, a great scam. Now, maybe even the same person or someone like that has sold an equally great scheme to the Prime Minister, and that is turning brown coal into hydrogen. So, as they announced this week, $500 million. 50 million from the feds and 50 million from the state to set up a pilot plant to turn brown coal, the most inefficient fossil fuel we have, into hydrogen. What is it going to produce in its 3 months, in its 12 months of operation? 3 tonnes. 3 tonnes of hydrogen. So let's do some numbers on that. $496 million invested. 3 tonnes produced, that's $166 per gram of hydrogen. 1 gram of hydrogen produces about 140 kilojoules of energy at 100% conversion. An 8-watt light globe, sorry I forgot to bring mine and hold it up, will use about 8 joules per second or 28 kilojoules per hour. That means that if I put that hydrogen into a fuel cell that's 80% efficient, it's going to cost $41.50 an hour to run that bloody light globe. Now that's only a pilot plant, but there are 2 schemes in South Australia and 1 scheme in the ACT that are set up to produce hydrogen out of renewables that are going to be much faster, much quicker and much cheaper than this one. The yield that was expected for this was 16 yen per kilowatt hour of hydrogen produced. The price of renewables is already below 10 yen. So science says you can crack the coal into hydrogen. It also says you can put the CO2 into the Bass Strait oil field. But economics says it's a really dumb idea. So I've been involved in climate research for almost 30 years, and along the way we've seen some real science and we've seen some fake science. So can you give us the Auslan for fake science? Fake science. Real science. Okay, so can everyone do that? Fake science. Real science. So next time you go up to Canberra and you go through the science-proof fence that they built around it, and you go into the public gallery, and one of those bozos stands up and tells you how beautiful, how good coal is and how clean it is, you can do fake science. And you won't get kicked out, maybe, because the speaker can't speak Auslan. So let's do a little bit of a test. Fake science and real science, and see how we go. CO2 is a plant food.
Real science.
Yeah, but the way it's being used, it's fake science, because they're saying the more CO2 in the atmosphere, the more the plants will grow. The next one. Bats and rats are the mammal orders with the most species.
Fake science.
No, that's real science. Bats and rats have been around longer than cats. Real science. Global warming is caused by thermometers in cities. Fake science. Global warming causes more snow in Antarctica. That's real science. In 2016, wind farms caused tornadoes and power blackouts in South Australia. Fake science. The trickle-down effect is a thing. Making the mega-rich richer makes us all richer.
Fake economics.
That's fake science and fake economics. Fake economics. Coal, you need to think about this. Coal is an object of paraphilia amongst certain LNP parliamentarians. That's true. That's real science. So, correct. You've all passed. Now you know the difference between fake science and real science. You can get out there and make a difference. Thank you.
Do we have Tien? Right there. Aha! Smash it. I can't see it. Wave at me, Tien. Tien, wave! We're walking towards it. Welcome to the stage. Please pronounce your last name for me. Kun. Say again. Kun. Tien Kun.
Sorry I'm late, but I brought the sunshine with me. So I'm a Tien Kun, lecturer at RMIT University down the road, and I love science. And the reason why I love it is because it is the solution to all our problems. It gives us the knowledge and it gives us the power to change the world for the better. And it's essential in everything we do for both now and into the future. And we need to get behind the scientists and the science so that we can support them to do what they do well. And we want everyone to be involved, whatever stage you've come from, wherever your history is, and whoever you are. So I thought I'd use today to inspire you and go back to your own families and homes and look at what you're doing and see if you can be inspired by science and spread the word of the love that we have for science and the impact that we can make with what we know. So my first thing is the power of flight. We have scientists who have made flying around the world possible. It connects us with everyone in the world, and we can also have astronauts that go up into the moon and beyond, space and beyond. Now, we weren't born with wings, but with science we were able to do that, to defy gravity, to be angels. So can we have a round of applause for the power of flight and all the scientists who made that possible? I can't hear you. We want Melbourne to hear you. My second most amazing feat that we've achieved with science is the power of speed. I love fast cars and I love going fast. And the fastest car that we have travels more than 150 miles an hour. That's 70 kilometres per second. Is that not amazing? So we can travel to our destination much faster. We have engineers and material scientists who work hard every day to make that possible. Can we have a round of applause for speed? My third one is the power of communication. And we're talking about the mobile phones that we use, the things that we can actually use with a touch of our fingertips to connect us with everyone in the world, from our parents to our loved ones, and even those that we don't know. It allows for us to talk to each other without any cables or any sort of physical connection. We also have the internet, which connects us with information without even touching anything. In the future, we'll see technology where you can just use your voice. You have the power of knowledge through a device. Can we have a round of applause for technology and communication? We love technology. I couldn't live without my phone. My last one, which is my most favourite, and I hope you take this away with you and be inspired by it, is the power of healing. Now we have medicine that has not only cured a lot of diseases, but also helps us in our time of need. We have healthcare professionals that save us. These are our real life heroes that work tirelessly to help us live a better life with quality. So can we have a round of applause for medicine and the doctors, nurses, paramedics and all the emergency services that we rely on to save us every single day without a simple thank you. Round of applause. You've got a question?
You have to confirm if this is right, but I believe the most efficient method of propelling something or someone forward is by bicycle.
Bicycle.
How does the bicycle run? Like the person
With
has
the
to eat
person.
sandwiches.
Yeah, by a bit of food. You have some energy because you ate something, but it's more efficient than a car. The only one thing that comes closest is salmon fish.
Well, even with a bicycle, you have engineers to put those wheels together.
Yeah, I
all
know,
the
it's
materials.
invented. It's
You know, we
science.
couldn't do it without science, and we forget that it's embedded in everything. And we need to support it, because without the science, we couldn't be where we are. We couldn't go into the future and live sustainably and healthy. So my thing is to give you that inspiration, to remind you that science is everyday stuff. Things that we rely on, whether it's riding a bike or whether it's enjoying the beautiful sunshine. You know, it's just everything we do. We can get the governments, the community behind us to support what we do. We can achieve amazing things, as we've seen in our history. We can achieve the impossible. We make the impossible possible. So, can we get some? What I'd like you to do is show you love science to everyone you know. And when I see this on TV or I see anyone showing it, I know that this has touched you and that you think about science as something that you'd like to contribute to, that you're a part of, because we are a team. We're living on this planet together. And that is what makes us humans. We care. We strive together. We're passionate. We want to make a difference. Have I inspired you? Yes. You'll see me doing around this in the city. But hopefully we want to get the whole city of Melbourne together with us on this, because we can't do it individually. We need to do it collectively. And there's a really nice saying that I'd like to leave you with, which is a single drops, we're just drops of water. But united, we are ocean.